Today's video, I want to talk to you guys about the basics of fly tying. Like if you're getting started into fly tying and you're not real sure what you need to get, I'm going to go through that with you. And I'm going to give you a couple little tips here and there, and then you can watch through some of my other videos that will expand on what we're talking about. But if you're going to get into fly tying and you're not sure what to do and you have a limited budget, I'm going to show you the most economical way to get into fly tying without just having pure junk. Now, if you want to step your game up and get a little bit higher end, you can do that. I would recommend starting out with the less expensive stuff. If you go that way and you decide you don't like it or whatever, you can be out and you're not out a lot of money. And then none of it really goes to waste. Like my first vise I bought, I use in my travel kit. So I still have, it's still usable. So with what I'm going to show you, I still use some of the stuff pretty often, and it's not a waste of money. If you want to spend more money, I'll show you a vise that you can get that's a really good vise and has lasted forever. And they're like $300. So, you know, you can go from $20 to like $300. So if you don't have much and all you want to do is get started, you can buy a vise like this for like $10 to $30, and they upgrade a little bit, but it's just a regular AA vise, and it doesn't have a rotary option. And a lot of people are going to say, well, I want the rotary option and blah blah blah. If you're just starting out, you're going to be tying pheasant tails, hare's ears, copper johns, woolly boogers, you know, maybe some mop flies, you know, maybe some clousers. There simply don't need a rotary vise for any of them. I tied for 20 years without a rotary vise, and I tied all of those things. Even the stuff that you use rotary with, I kind of did it the old-fashioned way, and it works just fine. If you start out with that vise, take the money that you would spend on a nicer vise and buy more materials, you can get more practice and you'll get better. And then if you really want to upgrade, you're only out $10 on a vise. Move up and you can get something better. So if the time comes to move up, this is what I use. It's a Renzetti travel vise. Now they make a fancier, bigger version, but I bought this one, or actually my wife bought it for me, and I bought it 15 years ago, and I tie a lot of flies, and that sucker has, I don't need a better vise. The Renzetti Traveler is my favorite vise I've ever used, and I've tied on some nicer vices, don't get me wrong, but I love that thing. I just love it. It's just got everything I need. It's easy to use. It's high quality. I have, tens of thousands of flies, been through them. The original Jaws, zero complaints, 100%. It's on target all the time. I love that thing. So if you want to buy that, they're, $250, $300, maybe more now. I don't know, but they're a lot more expensive. And you can do a few more things. But if I was starting out, the things that I can do, I wouldn't start with that. I would start with the basic, and I could buy that much more materials, and I could go, or just be on a budget and don't waste a bunch of money. Second thing, if you're going to tie flies, most important tool that you can buy, don't chintz on this, is scissors. So you can buy a cheap pair of crap scissors for $3, $4, or you can buy a really, really good pair of scissors for under $20. And this is an Anvil brand, and it's a curved shaft on the blade. Best pair of scissors I've ever had. Like I say, I've tied for almost 40 years, and these bad boys are my favorite. This pair of scissors here, I was using this morning. I use them almost every day. They're 15 years old, and I tie every single day. They're durable, they're sharp, they get in there, they do a great job. Get a good pair of scissors. Cheap scissors, they cause sloppy work. They don't cut sharp. The jaws aren't tight. They're just trash. Get a good pair of scissors. So you need a vise, you need a good pair of scissors. So if you're going to tie thread down, you need a bobbin. Now this is where I'm going to get a lot of people to want to argue with me. And I don't care. Everybody has an opinion, and that's great. And if you have one, share it in the video. We have young guys who are getting into fly tying, and I want them to get the best opinions that they can possibly get. Now this video is for on a budget, but if you have an opinion or you want to share some information getting guys started, share the tips in there, because if these guys are watching this video, hopefully they'll read through the comments and it'll help them improve their tying. So I buy cheap bobbins. These bobbin holders here are literally $4 or $5. Now, they make a cheaper version that's just got a steel tube. The one I've got, if you look at the end, it's got that black ceramic liner. if you get these ceramic liners in them, it'll keep the thread from wearing out the metal. And if you use a bobbin a lot that doesn't have that, it'll start getting really sharp around the metal and it'll cut your thread all the time. They're kind of junk. Now, you can spend a bunch of money on bobbin holders. I've used these forever. I don't see why we would need anything different. So I took the mentality, instead of spending $50 on a bobbin holder, I bought a bunch of them. So I have 2 racks of these that sit on my bench. And I have every color of thread that I keep on hand on a bobbin at all times. So if I'm tying, I can jump in and grab what I need when I need it. And I always have it. So anytime I need a certain color, all I gotta do is grab it and I don't have to worry about stringing it. Now, those tools, that'll get you pretty much what you have to have. But there's a lot of things that'll make life better. First and foremost, whip finishing by hand, it's pretty easy. But they make these tools that make it so much easier. So a whip finishing tool, now I like this kind. They make another style that has a different shape. It's a little bit more bent up and stuff. Either one's good. This is what I started with. I've used the same ones forever. Literally, I think this is my second whip finisher in 40 years. I love it. So get a good whip finisher and learn how to use it. Having a tool is no good if you don't know how to use it. So get on YouTube, watch some videos on how to whip finish, and get good at whip finishing. Whenever you whip finish a fly, always put a couple, 3, 4 wraps before you come out. And I always try to do 2 whip finishes of 3 or 4 wraps, and sometimes more. Not more whip finishes, but more wraps. You want that thread secured tight to where it's not going to go anywhere. So if you're going to go to the whip finishing, the next thing that I recommend, I like to get some head cement. I like it in this little tube because I can just squirt it on top. This little thing just slides out and the glue just squirts out. And it works really, really well. They're $4 or $5. But if you don't like that, you could get away with going and buying a bottle of cheap dollar store clear fingernail polish and use a toothpick to put it on your head. And it'll work just fine. A lot of guys do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So you can really get away cheap. If you've got, anybody that paints their fingernails and they have a clear fingernail polish, you can steal a bottle of it and you don't even have to buy it. So that's the next thing. The next tool that I would recommend, this little bad boy here, is $15 at Hobby Lobby. It's a 5.5 inch magnifying lens that clamps. Now I have a little board that I sit my vise on that raises it up so it's a little bit more comfortable. My back's not hunched over. It just clips right on the front of that. It blows my work up. Now I'm getting old, if the gray whiskers doesn't let you know that. So my eyes aren't quite what they used to be. So it really helps. But not only that, I got one for my daughter who's 13, and it blows that fly up and it doesn't fatigue your eyes. So you can tie way, way longer and your eyes don't get fatigued. So if you have a magnifying lens like that, not only does it make the eyes less stressed, but it blows that fly up. So when you're tying, you can see the proportions of the fly. So you can see if you're getting carried away and it's not proportioned or it's getting too big, which 90% of the time, if you're starting out, you're going to go too big. And always use less. Less is more. Like the flies don't need to be bulky. That magnifying lens will show you that. So if you can make that fly look really good under a magnifying lens, they're gonna look awesome when they're not under it. So if you practice under that lens, you'll be able to get your proportions right, and it's going to be easier to get them delicate knots in because you're working on a bigger area. So I would recommend one of them. They're just hands down, they're the way to go. So another thing that you're going to need in time is going to be hackle pliers. You can buy these cheap little ones for under $1, or you can buy one like this and it just clips on the feather. So when you're pulling it, and this one's a rotary. I really like these. They're $5. They're not very expensive. And if you're going to start getting into deer hair and stuff, you can get a little hair stacker. And that's pretty much everything that you need to start. So you can get these materials you have, these supplies, tools, whatever I'm trying to say. Get these tools and you have everything you need to start. So then go buy you a fly that you want to tie. So if you're going to tie a certain pattern, go buy that pattern. Go to your local fly shop. Go to your local fly fisherman. Come to a guy like me, and they'll probably give you one. I'd gladly give a person a fly if they're trying to learn a certain pattern. Give them that fly. And then when you get that fly, tie until your fly looks like that. If yours is fatter and clumpier and the proportions aren't right, change it until you get your fly to look like that one. and then tie another one, and get to the point where you can tie 10 of them that look just like that one. If you can do that, you're on the mark to success. The next thing that you need to do is to really control when you're using your thread. A lot of guys get a really, really long base and they make these big giant loops. Well, there's no tension, there's no control, it's a mess. Take your thread and get your bobbin really short to your fly, about 1 inch away, and do tight, consistent wraps. You're going to get way better control and way better looking flies. So now we're at materials. You can go to craft stores and you can do all these different things, and you can buy materials. You can get different threads. There's a lot of ways to cut corners and buy stuff. Always support your local fly shop, but there's a lot of things that you can get that, you know, you can find at different areas. But when it comes to feathers, buy your feathers from a fly shop. If you buy dyed feathers from anywhere that's not a fly shop, a lot of times they're not dyed with something that sets the color in. So when you tie your fly and you go out and fish with it and it gets wet, it'll bleed all over. Not only that, if you're tying flies, it'll bleed into your fingertips and it's just a mess. Feathers that are made for fly fishing, they use a different process and it sets that color in so it doesn't bleed on everything. So when you do this, you go get a fly and you get that fly from somebody. Get on YouTube. Get somebody that will teach you how to tie a pattern other than just YouTube in person. But learn what materials are in that fly. So say, for simplicity, let's start with a woolly booger, which I feel should be everybody's first fly. It's really easy, and it fishes multiple species. You can fish any species with a woolly booger, and it doesn't take a lot of materials and doesn't take a lot of talent. Like, you can really figure that one out fast. It's going to take some, whatever size hook you're using. It's going to take some marabou. It's going to take a hackle feather. It's going to take some chenille. It's going to take your thread, maybe some lead wire to weight it down, maybe a bead head, and maybe a copper wire rib to go through it. That's it. So find what that pattern that you want to tie is, and get the material list and buy those materials. If you buy a big kit, it comes with a bunch of generic stuff that doesn't give you enough to tie hardly anything. So you're going to be able to do a couple. Well, you don't figure out the process with a couple. So if you go buy the specific materials you need for the flies you want to fish, then you can tie a bunch of them. And once you master one, tie one a bigger size and tie one a smaller size. Because when you're fishing, a lot of times if the fish aren't hitting on something, you can go to a smaller size and boom, they're on. So master that one fly and then change the size and do another one. Then pick the next pattern that you want to fly or want to tie. Go get that fly from somebody. Either, go to your local fly shop, Cabela's, Bass Pro, any of those places. Buy the fly that you want. Get your fly tire to give you one. And then find the material list for that fly. Go buy that set of materials and then focus on that one and master that fly. When you get those things done, before long, you're learning different techniques and different techniques and different techniques, and they all blend in together. Don't tie 2 or 3 and then go to the next one and tie 2 or 3 and go to the next one and tie 2 or 3, because you're never going to get consistent. And the way to show that you're a good fly fisher, or fly tire, is to have good consistent in everything that you're tying. You want everything to be consistent to where if one is here and number 12 is here, they look the same. When you get that, you're there. You're all the way there. Watch a ton of YouTube. Subscribe to Fly Tire Magazine. I get it. It's a quarterly magazine now. I've been subscribed to that thing, I bet 20 years or better. I have every episode or every issue. I've never got rid of them. They're still stacked right here in my fly tying room. Each month they come out with a dozen patterns or so. You can go through them and you can pick what you want and you can tie it. It's got the materials, and it also gives you the updated current new stuff that's coming out as far as materials and patterns. So if you guys watch this and you get these simple tools, you're on your way. You're ready to go. And just get someone to mentor you if you need to, and don't go all out. Focus simple and work your way up. So I hope this helps, and we will see you guys in the next video.